two quick questions to ask. The first one is, what part or parts of the Survivors' Bill of Rights being proposed to UMass are in violation of Title IX, and why has it taken since 2015 for Title IX to get to the point that it's at? Why hasn't it passed yet?
So I was not here in 2015. I will tell you, I was working with members of the SJ last spring to go through essentially point by point of the Survivors' Bill of Rights to look at what can be enacted. The majority of the Survivors' Bill of Rights are things that we are either already doing or will be doing because of changes in both state and federal law. We do have a few pieces of the Survivors' Bill of Rights that we're going to need to work with the SGA on to make sure that they are compliant with law. We'll obviously have to work with our attorneys. For example, the Survivors' Bill of Rights includes two different definitions around issues of consent. We have to make sure that the consent language within the Survivors' Bill of Rights aligns with law. And the reason that that's incredibly important to us is because those of us that are looking at dealing with Title IX cases, we want to make sure that if we find someone responsible, that it's going to stick. If we have a lack of clarity, if our policies, our internal policies do not align squarely with law, it is a good chance that we will fail to be able to adequately defend when that decision is ultimately challenged possibly in court. So we just want to make sure that everything is appropriately aligned, and our commitment is to work with the SGA this semester to get a version of the Survivors' Bill of Rights passed. I don't think we're actually that far off, because I think many of the provisions are things we're already doing, but we need to resolve a few pieces.
Okay, I don't believe that, as committed as anybody can be to something being appropriately aligned, I don't think it would take them 7 years to appropriately align that thing.
Yeah.
About the fraternity known as Spike Pike due to its reputation for having its members roofie and rape people. That fraternity was suspended in 2017 after years of this going on. But it was a temporary suspension, and it is going to expire in 2022. Why is the university allowing that to happen?
So a suspension is for a defined amount of time. It's a separation from the university for a defined amount of time. That's what a suspension is. And so if they have completed what was asked of them to complete, they can be considered for reconnecting with the university at the end of their suspension. And I have not looked at their case. I don't know exactly when that expired. Or when their suspension
Look at it now.
But at that point in time, we will review whether or not they should be allowed to come back on campus.
No. Keep Pike out of here.
So your legal infrastructure around prosecuting sexual assault does not allow victims to safely come forward with statements or information. The amount of steps in the process, predicated on trusting the UMPD, is ridiculous, considering it's an organization that absolutely no one trusts. The small preventative measures that you have put in place, like the blue light system, don't allow for the massive number of cases that occur behind closed doors, where the victim knows the perpetrator personally. I don't know. I guess the question isn't where the system is failing, it's if it's succeeding at any stage. I would like to ask, all this being said, how you realistically expect to create meaningful change without taking systemic measures like creating channels outside of UMPD or disconnecting the school from the Greek life organizations that allow and actively encourage racism, sexism, transphobia, and all kinds of predatory behavior. Other schools have done it. Why can't you?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to mention that UMPD is not the only area that you can report. So I do think it's important to know that, there's the Title IX option, Dean of Students option, there's CWC. I want to highlight that because I do think it's important. If there's a concern about safety or trust there, then there are absolutely other ways that can be reported. So,
What are your perpetrators? Nothing.
well, and I want to go back to the question, and so I think again that the Chancellor has talked about our commitment to do the review, and I think that is where we're going to really have the opportunity to look at the systemic issues and to see where across the board, from an external review process, someone that's external to us that can look at that very objectively and give us good hard feedback about where we can do better.
So you're going to check it out and get back to us.
Can we get a timeline? Can we get an ETA?
I did mention that we would hire the consultant within the next 4 weeks. The process is already begun. It will take selecting the right persons and so forth and giving them the charge. We'll do that, and then the timeline for how long it will take to talk to people who will talk to the third party and give perhaps more details that will allow them to understand where the failures are and give us advice on where the systemic failures are and what changes we need to make. That's a timetable that they will set, but certainly we will give you a report before the end of the semester on what they have found so far.
So depending on the findings, what's on the table? Like what steps are you willing to take?
I think that in the absence of knowing what the findings will be, it will be entirely hypothetical for me to make a statement.
Okay, we're moving on to the next question.
So I would just like to start off by saying that I'm a freshman. I've been living on this campus for 1 month. And if you had asked me what I thought about this campus a month ago, I would have said a place where people can be themselves and live as a college student in a respectful and dignified institution. If you ask me that question today, I would say that it's a place where people have to live in fear of speaking up for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
My question to you, Chancellor, is you mentioned at the beginning of this forum that you're going to implement a 3-component plan to bring about change on this campus. And so how exactly do you plan on doing that? Because frankly, you and your administration have been all talk and there has been no action actually been taken. So on behalf of everyone here, I'd like to ask you, how do you actually plan on bringing about change here?
In terms of the 3 steps I mentioned, the Survivor Bill of Rights is the one that will probably get done the soonest. And then there's a long list of steps that have to be implemented. And this will be, those that are not already implemented will be implemented. And that really does take a significant part of what a great many of you have been talking about in that. That's a pretty elaborate long list of items that are in it. Looking back to see where all the failures have been is something that will again take place. That's a very concrete step of trying to take from what have been really bits and pieces of information to have a third independent party to really do an audit, if you will, of what's working, what's not working, and where all the failures have been. And again, that's a very concrete step. That's the thing from which we can make the changes. And then the third part was about a culture change. Again, if these findings suggest that particular areas, particular either residence halls or fraternities are problem areas, then again there will be steps taken based on that.
And a follow-up question, how long should we expect this change? Because frankly, too much time has passed already.
One thing, will you publicly post the
university, everything we do, except for confidential information about particular individuals, is in fact subject to complete disclosure. That is Freedom of Information Act. So that everything we do is in fact, except for those that are legally protected because of privacy rules. They're all public, yes.
I think we need like a specific part of the website that we can follow.
I'll answer that.
Yeah.
If you can check in on the Title IX website, we'll make sure to keep it updated.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I want to start with I'm a transfer student and I came from a school that I felt not welcome at and I had a very hard time there and I came in here of hopes of finding my place. And coming from a transfer student who's living with many other transfer students or new students, this is extremely upsetting. We're looking for a place to be where we feel safe and this is not safe. None of this feels safe. And I would like to start with, while the process is of reporting, and I'm glad that it seems to be that there's partial reform being made so that it's not such a strenuous process for survivors, well, that's great. This should be happening in the first place. Like, we should not have to report our assaults. We shouldn't be assaulted on our college campus in the first place. And I can tell you right now, I know the chancellor, you were asking where the system is failing, and I can tell you that it starts with Greek life. 100% starts with Greek life. And the fact that, like, so I can tell you, I know there was confusion about the ratio, and I would like to share my personal experience with it as somebody who, I was at Theta Chi Friday and Saturday of that weekend. I was there and I experienced the ratio. And I reported it too, and nothing was done. Just so everyone knows, nothing was done. I reported what I've seen, nothing was done. The ratio, you walk up to the gate and there are frat brothers who turn you around based on your gender, which again is super harmful because we all know that there's more than 2 genders. That's extremely harmful.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that that even exists is a problem. And it's an extreme problem. And so you approach the gate and they turn you around if you aren't female presenting, essentially. So the fact that that exists in and of itself promotes rape culture. Like, why else would they have a ratio other than to get women into a room with frat brothers so that they can have their pick of us? That's why it exists. So if we're not going to disband Theta Chi or Greek life, something needs to be done so that this does not happen. This should not be allowed on our campus. There should not be gender discrimination on our campus at all. Like, that's so incredibly wrong. That should be gone. So I want to know what is going to be done about specifically the ratio, because I think that we can all see that Greek life does bring a lot of money and attraction to this college. Regardless of whether admin makes money based off of Greek life, I think that we know there's a draw for students to attend here so that they can participate in Greek life, which therefore results in admin making money because we're providing tuition. The frat brothers are providing tuition. So I want to know, if Greek life isn't going to be disbanded or abolished, how are we going to stop this discrimination and this clear way of this happening in the first place so that we don't have to report sexual assault, so we can stop them from happening?
May I ask where you reported the concern?
In the email that was sent out right after addressing, there was a link that says report here, clicked right on that, filled out a whole email, and I got something about getting support back and having to file again. We shouldn't have to, that's the thing about filing something like sexual assault. The fact that a survivor has to even take that step, that's very traumatizing, so I can only imagine somebody who like experienced much worse than I've experienced that Theta. I can only imagine how traumatizing it is to have to repeatedly report and go through different steps.
Would you be willing to put your information?
Yeah.
So we can follow up with you?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Brandy, if you can share that paper with me, I'll share.
Yep.
So I just have 2 pretty brief questions. The first one, I just want to give some context. I'm going to be reading from